Hello there, and welcome to this Friday edition of the We Want Houston podcast, presented indirectly by myself. This is the summer edition. The reason why I'm sitting here with sunglasses on is because my kids were sitting outside, and I'm being a responsible dad hashtag. So I'm, facing the window as they were like in the pool, right? So trying to best of both worlds. But they're inside now, so I'm good. Did my job. But anyway, joining me today as a star-studded duo here. For my wrestling fans, this is like a 2-on-1 handicap match. But don't worry, Texans fans, we're going to handle some business today. All right, so joining me today, I have Mr. Travis Holmes. He is Jaguars beat reporter for Big Cat Country of SB Nation, one half of the Duval Dive Podcast. And speaking of Duval Dive, we have student of the game Kyle Nash here, who is the writer and producer for said Duval Dive of the Believe Network. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
It's a great morning. A long weekend, and we just got done doing the special 4th of July Duval Dive live on Friday morning, talking about offensive line play and bringing the bully ball back to this AFC South. So y'all check that out. But man, appreciate you having us.
Absolutely, man. And let's get Kyle in here real quick. So Kyle, welcome in, sir. How you feeling?
Hey, listen, I appreciate you doing the summer thing and the orange shades. I don't get a chance to do this a lot, but I get to promote the UFL pod as well. The orange shades are perfect for the Orlando Storm Surge podcast as well, man. So I'm with that. And, man, listen, don't ever apologize for doing your summer right, man. It's all good.
Let me hold it real quick. Yep. No, absolutely, man. Look, I'm a teacher. So, I got my summer off. So I'm trying to grind and get it in where I can doing this whole sports thing. But, so let me kind of give some background for those who don't know this. So, this is a meeting that was like, almost 2 weeks in the making, because here we go. I made a post, right? Again, I didn't mean to talk trash. I was just making something about Derek Stingley. I really was. Okay. And that's when Travis came off the top rope. I don't know if that was what he intended or not. He said, as offseason fodder for both fan bases, this is pure gold. And specifically, if you look at the top part of that, it's because Stingley has 4 picks against the Jacksonville Jaguars, throughout his career. I was really just focused on the 15 career interceptions and him breaking the record. It just so happened that most of his picks have come against Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Literally, all 4 have been against Trevor Lawrence, right? So that's kind of how this whole thing started. So, Travis, just real quick. So once you saw that, I mean, what did you think, man? What made you quote tweet that day?
It was obvious. It was, I can't even say obvious. It was, for me, factual and based in stats, but in some ways it was still somewhat of a troll post, but also not. And the game recognized game, so I'm like, oh, this is gonna go crazy, because it is, and it probably should, but also because there's so much context and nuance within it that it's like the other quarterbacking in the AFC South, the other only teams you can truly compare against, because they play them twice a year, were kind of garbage in that time frame. And they also were a rotating, cycle of garbage, not just that. And then you have guys who weren't, I'm sorry, I'm being honest about this. I don't pull punches.
I've never heard those words put together, like rotating cycle of garbage. Like normally just you're trash or you're not. Rotation.
It wasn't just trash, because it was just trash, but also guys who you probably wouldn't want to be your starting quarterback, but also rotating because of injury and everything else. So then you're talking about those guys who probably aren't going to even try to threaten Stingley. Lawrence is a different breed. He is a former, college top quarterback who then had a historically bad coach in his first year and he don't know no better. He's like, I'm trying this dude, and we're going to just see what happens. And sometimes bad things happen when you try a dude that probably shouldn't be tried. I think that's also a fair landing point at the end of the day. So overall, he's paid the price by giving Stingley those 4 interceptions, because he keeps trying that young man, and that's a great cornerback. I'm a former cornerback for UCF. I respect DBs, so I want to give him his props when saying, hey, Stingley is that dude, but also he's also been beat a few times and Trevor just underthrew it. Both things can be true, so it is what it is.
Sure. No, and look, and Kyle, I'm going to get you in here in a second. Look, as a Texans fan, I can objectively say I've watched a lot of these, games between the Texans and Jaguars, and yeah, absolutely. I can say that as prolific as our defense has been, there are a bunch of times that if Travis could just have connected on the deep ball, we're beat by like 1 or 2 scores. Like, that's being as objective as I can be. I can think of a number of routes where literally the ball just floats over and the DB is beat by 5 yards, like cleanly. So thankful that Trevor Lawrence at times have had deep ball accuracy issues. But yeah, look, facts are facts, man. Stats say what the stats say. Don't blame me. I just look them up. But Kyle, what about you, man? What were you aware of this when we organized the meeting?
I wasn't necessarily aware of the tweet in question, but there is historical precedent for a solid DB getting the opportunity to eat by circumstance, right? I'm going to go full history on you. There was a Cincinnati Bengal, Deltha O'Neal, that had 9 interceptions in a season. I'm like, he's good, but the reason why he's that good is because Brett Favre played against him, okay? So, things like that. But again, taking nothing from Stingley. Let me be clear. I'm a guy who's another guy who's really big in Houston media, Patrick Creighton. I've had the conversation with him when Stingley got drafted, and I've never seen a dude be this excited for a corner that's not named Travis D. Holmes. So, all the above to say, taking nothing away from Derek Stingley, but again, when this inevitable matchup happens twice a year, and I speak only as an honorary member of the Devout, that's still going to be a thing you watch. And lessons have been learned, and it'll make that a fascinating matchup regardless. I mean, listen, at day's end, there's still a certain 19-point quarter that is going to hang over way more than anything Derek Stingley did. And I already see Travis shaking his head. Why you got to bring that up, Cal? Why is it like that? Come on.
Yeah, Travis. I mean, listen, what we got, man? What's up? You say you pull no punches. So what's going on over there?
No, man, that 19-point comeback is something that is still, it's like a stab in the heart from this last season, just because it allowed you guys to make the postseason when you probably shouldn't have. Is what I'm sorry, it's true. Like we all know it's true. I don't think it's at this point. It's just like, all right, you guys make the postseason, and that allows the Texans to continue bragging about something that was honestly shouldn't be able to be bragged about, if that makes sense. Like y'all backed into a postseason appearance where your offense was struggling. It was, bro. But it worked out for y'all somewhat. It worked out. It worked out for the Texans as equally as it worked out for the Jaguars. We both were sitting at home by the time the Super Bowl came. At the end of the day, both teams have work to do, and hopefully they made the work that they aimed to make, and we'll see how the outcome comes in this 2026 season. The proof will be on the field.
See, Travis, I knew I didn't make a mistake reaching out to you, sir. So here's my thing, right? See, I said off stream, I'm not gonna try to talk trash. I'm not. But see,
did I talk trash? I thought I was being objective there.
Good. No, you good. What'd you say earlier about Stingley? You factual, but there's a little bit of sprinkles of some trolling happening. It's good. We're not going to talk about the fact that we lasted one more postseason weekend than y'all did. We're not going to talk about the fact that we went on the road at Acrisure Stadium, pulled out the belt, 30-6, Aaron Rodgers, and you guys did what?
Bro, I can beat up an old man too. That ain't hard.
Hey, that ain't my problem. Hey,
that man in these streets. We out in these streets, like legitimately, like bragging about beating up old people, bro. I thought this is 2026. Come on.
I was told that Mike Tomlin doesn't lose on Monday nights. I was told that hey, the Texans are this and TJ Watt and all this stuff. And hey, listen, bro, we good.
Who's trolling? All right,
listen,
cool.
We getting ahead of the schedule. We got to keep a schedule, Travis. My goodness, sir, have some decorum. But I'm gonna say this. Oh, okay, so I'm gonna kind of skip over what I was going to do. I had a curveball plan. I'm still gonna put it in there. But since we're kind of hot on this right now, speaking of this kind of like rivalry, I guess, amongst Texans and Jags fans, that was gonna be the next question. Before I even asked the question, there was an individual who I believe that if I had to pick any YouTuber content creator who represents my point when I ask this question, it's this man right here, right? So UCF Jaguar, right? So full disclosure, I pulled this clip right before you popped on. I said, let me see. Let me get this guy up in here because I feel like he does a good job of encapsulating what I'm going to say, right? I don't know what to make of what this rivalry is or is not. I kind of couldn't tell you when it kind of developed. Maybe it's when Trevor Lawrence got here, which is the Black Bortles years. I don't know. Is it the fact that the Texans and Jaguars are kind of two of the most recent teams in the NFL? I have no idea. But when I see clips like this, or when I saw clips like this, it resonates. So I'm just let him say what he wanted to say. And this was after the Jaguars beat the Texans in their second matchup in the 2023 season.
Texans fans, I tried to tell you guys, the Jaguars run the AFC South, okay? This is our division. Trevor Lawrence is better than CJ Stroud. Better luck in 2024. Have fun competing with Indianapolis for second in the AFC South. Duval.
Man. And if we recall, speaking factually, I remember how that season ended. It ended with the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud heading to the postseason as the winners of the AFC South, unless my memory doesn't serve me correctly. But Travis, let's start with you, man. So what do you make of whatever this nebulous relationship is between Texans fans and Jaguars fans? Why does it get so testy at times?
So first thing first, I can't say that that's UCF Jaguar. Shout out to him. Like we run in a lot of the same circles. I've been on his pod a few times. He's a fan of as far as the UCF, as the UCF fan base and the Jaguar fan base is concerned. I don't necessarily share the same level of excitement. I'll say on a year by year basis as far as this team. I'm a test and believe kind of guy, generally. So I never had the confidence on a year by year basis that the Jaguars would win the division versus losing the division. That's another level of fandom that I simply do not possess. I have multiple "this team makes me drink" shirts, one of which we are selling in the Duval Dive print-to-buy store. Just so folks understand, that's my level of distrust with how this division could go, because I believe it to be a dogfight. And to your original point, I think this rivalry, I have not seen this as a rivalry until the Aziz Al-Shire hit on Trevor Lawrence. Before then, I think Houston viewed Jacksonville as a rivalry, and Jacksonville did not view Houston as a rivalry. Jacksonville viewed the Indianapolis Colts, maybe even the Titans, as more of a rivalry due to the old Music City Miracle year where the Titans stole Jaguars playbook and beat them 3 times, and that was the only team they lost against that season. 3 times in one season, and they just happened to find out later that they had your playbook. That's pretty rough. That's where the most Jaguar fans, from my recollection, from my conversations, would have deemed as more of a rivalry. Then the hit happened. And then it was like, we don't F with them. We don't like them. Forget them. Bad boy records, all this, everything else. That's when it became a real rivalry of like more than just football, more than just on what takes place on the field. And then the Texans also winning didn't help that at all. So I think that from my perspective, that's the landing point. It was that dude, the number 0, causing this thing to be a real, all right, we don't like them.
So we're going to blame Asian Zero, who, by the way, number 92 on the NFL's top 100. Congrats to him. But Kyle, what do you have to add to this soliloquy of Travis's?
You know, I'm not going to touch on ranks and things like that. I mean, we know for a fact Jeffrey Simmons was hired for a reason, and he doesn't have to hurt people to do it with illegal hits. But the punchline is this. Hey, we wanted gloves coming off.
Let's
okay,
go.
I'll take my turn. Because when you're talking about the craft of trench warfare, that wasn't how it was done. And see, listen, I say this mostly in jest, though. That was what got things heated. I'll agree with that. Which, by the way, if we're going to have the conversation about being honest about things, why is it we still criticize Liam Coen's Duval and then listen to UCF Jaguar drop that trash? What are we doing here? Okay? I'm going to keep people credible. That was a weak Duval. He was called out at the time for it. Which, I mean, listen, fans going to fan, Clayton. That's what gives us all content, okay? But at day's end, listen, I think what is elevating over and above the passion surrounding the Al-Shire hit, which was laid at all Hades, I don't care what Tom Brady says. The long of the short is the fact that there's real competition at the top of the South keeps it alive, and really a thing to kind of cherish. We hear about all the time amongst the Duval Devout, Clayton, that we don't like Tennessee, but can you guys like not suck so the game matters? That would be nice, you know. So that's where I kind of weigh in on it too. But I'll put it this way: the other teams being mentioned as rivals ahead of Houston isn't a disrespect. It's just a seniority. It wasn't your turn yet, but I think we're getting there.
Look, I'm learning a whole lot. Listen, I got my mental notepad. So seniority, we don't F with y'all. You know, Agent Zero, we blame you. You know, you put the bad water in Flint, Michigan. That was our fault. So, that was our that was our fault. So I get it. I mean, look, you guys made some great points historically, chronologically, and just on the field. I remember that, when that slide happened and Aziz did what he did. And not only did he do that, but it was his actions after the fact where, look, and I remember, like, he had to be held back. So y'all know that meme now with Sophia Cunningham, she does this right here. Okay. Aziz was the original that right there. I wish I had the picture for you, but like he was the original, like, this right here, like getting him off the field as he was still raving mad about stuff. So, and then after that, he pulled Draymond Green and, allegedly contemplated retirement. So it was a lot going on, at that time. But I recall that's kind of where, like, okay, the powder keg kind of exploded, and it went from like it went from like a healthy competitive kind of back and forth to like, okay, yeah, there's a problem. I remember like before this, like the DeAndre Hopkins versus Jalen Ramsey years, right? Where it was just a sparring back and forth, who could get who. And to y'all's point about it not being a rivalry, I mean, yeah, because at that time, I mean, the Texans just weren't good. Historically haven't been good. But, we'd beat y'all beat us. Now, y'all have had higher highs as an organization. Much higher highs that we have. But as far as like the head-to-head, that's where we parse out and say, okay, and this is where, I go to for one of my first references with footballdatabase.com. If we're talking about like the all-time back and forth, which is kind of what influenced my question, oddly enough, in 48 games in this series, the Texans are ahead 32-16, right? Doubled up against these Jacksonville Jaguars, right? Including Mr. Trevor Lawrence, T-Law Sunshine himself, Mr. selling his wigs off, I guess, including his 3-7 record versus the Texans all time, right? Which, to his credit, he's racked up those 3 wins within the last 3 seasons, from the back end of the 2022 season to now. So they've had recent success, but starting off, L, win, L, all this stuff. And again, contextually, I'm not trying to be a full hater. As much as I want to troll, look, y'all had Urban Meyer, y'all had, the Peterson years. So
thank you.
There's a lot of stuff that limited his success. I will give that to him. But still, on paper, organizationally, my question would be this, and I'll flip it. I'll go to Kyle first. Why do you think there's been such a specific struggle on the Jaguars' part in facing the Texans over the years?
Well, listen, defense is just so important. And as somebody who covers the Jaguars, I have J.J. Watt here right behind me in my fat head, okay? Like, put respect where it's due. That's a Hall of Fame human being, okay? That's a big part of it. And then when you don't have Tony Baselli blocking, he will make you pay for it. Can we be honest about that part? I'm not putting it all on JJ. That defense was legit. Brian Cushing, you had twilight years. You had 3 defenders I liked all together. What was it? Clowney, Will Fork, and JJ Watt. As a man that does trench warfare, how do you not respect that? And I think that's where it begins and ends with the rivalry overall. Up until you really started to see the Jaguars improve their offensive line at some point, you were dominating. Now, granted, does that account for a double up? No. Listen, I'm not watching this matchup as closely as Travis is with the same history. I'm a Niner fan. I cover the Jags. I have fun doing it, right? Now, to your credit, coaching's a big part of it. You already mentioned, props to you, by the way, as a Texan, being somebody that acknowledges Urban Meyer was a thing, slowing Trevor Lawrence, and acknowledging that C.J. Stroud and Trevor Lawrence are a lot closer together than a lot of Texans fans will acknowledge. You are so many light years ahead, and the amount of respect you get from me just on this exchange is huge. Props to you, brother. But, yeah, if you were to put it to me, it's just a better run organization. As a Niner fan, and this is why I brought that up, I have been twice harmed by Trent Baalke. Okay? He was a Niner GM that chased off Jim Harbaugh. You know that guy. Done some pretty good things since, I think. And then he jumps over to Jacksonville and puts all sorts of other sins in place that James Gladstone, we call him Jimmy Stones, and Liam Coen have to forgive, as well as Tony Baselli. And by the way, I think it's still interesting that Tony Baselli is well known as a Jag, yet he was first drafted as a Texan, for those that don't know that here, right? I feel like the historian in this episode. But yeah, I think that's just a lot of it is just being a better front office out the gate, regardless of what happened there. All NFL franchises start there, don't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hey, that's factual. Travis?
I think I agree. It always came down to the front office, to the surrounding cast, to the coaching staff, and all of those kind of conversations. You may not know, and maybe you do. Maybe you have your own opinions, but the Doug Peterson, the Doug Peterson situation that resulted in the 2022 season that was quote unquote successful. I mean, it was in very many ways successful. We on our podcast were never like believers of that. The day the Jaguars had the comeback victory against the Chargers in the playoffs, we said in the post game that win would hold the Jacksonville Jaguars organization back 2-3 years. In the post game after that game, saying that's going to result in Trent Baalke not being fired when he probably should have been fired after this season. That's going to result in Doug Peterson not being fired. And in reality, Trevor Lawrence carried that 2022 team for the entire second half of that season, like multiple 10-point plus comebacks, and just basically just ran Harry up offense and carried that team into a postseason. And because of that, we knew that the bad organization that was in the top part, the front office, was going to hold this team back for a few seasons. So when we see Texans fans bragging about like, oh, the 2023 team, the 2024 team, I'm like, yeah, they did what they were supposed to do. They were badly ran. And eventually it was going to crumble because it was a farce from the start. And these players were trying to overdo what this coaching staff could and its front office could not do. And that's just be reasonable, level-headed, 500 level front office personnel. So yeah, Trevor Lawrence was 1-1 in 2023, and that was with that very injured season for the team. He was 0-2 in 2024, and he was 1-1 in 2025 with reasonably bad front office management in 2 of those 3 years. I think right now the future is looking a lot better than the past. So that 3-7 record does probably deserve that context.
Sure. No, and look, I agree. Again, as a Texans fan, I watch these games, and we've all seen it. It's not. Look, you can see the 3-7, you can see the 32-16, but when you watch the product, which is what we all should do instead of box score watching, right? Is these games have been hotly contested each and every time. Like we're talking about walk-off touchdowns to Dare Gumbawale. We're talking about last-second interceptions generated by Josh Hines Allen tapping CJ Stroud's arm and stuff like that. Like these have been very, very close games that could have broke either way. And to go back to the Week 10 game of last year, even then, I mean, you go in that game, and I think the most hurtful part about it for Jaguars fans is that you lost Davis Mills. It wasn't CJ Stroud.
It's
You
always
lost to
backup
Davis
quarterbacks.
Mills.
If CJ Stroud would have played, they would have won that game. I thoroughly believe that.
Again, somebody's going to clip this and say, "Oh, see, he doesn't." No. But that season, right? CJ Stroud, stylistically, I really feel like we're not even talking about CJ Stroud with this, but I feel like him sitting back and watching Davis Mills and how he went 4 up, 4 down with this offense, it was very telling. I also agree that I don't know if CJ gets that game back for you. I just don't know with where he was at that time. So, but I think that was the most hurtful part, is that you lost to Davis Mills, and it wasn't even on his arm. I mean, it started off that way, but he he beat Trayvon Walker to the pylon. Touchdown, right? So that was the lasting image, right? And then after that, what happened? Scoop and score. Sheldon Rankins, and that was night. Kiss the baby, right? So
sometimes it is good to beat up an old man. Dang.
Right.
All right.
So, and look, and last part about that, one of the most delicious things that I got from that was watching Liam Coen. I like Liam Coen, respect to him. I think he's a breath of fresh air as far as like a personality as a coach. Like he wears his emotions on his sleeve. Not a lot of coach speak. He'll tell you exactly what he feels. And I always respect that of any leader of men. Don't spit in my face and tell me it's raining. Just be real, right? And we'll move on. I just like the fact that he just threw his clipboard down, took the headset off. He said, "Man, all right." Because I get it, because any human response right there is like, man, what the heck I just watched, right? But anyway, y'all went on, and again, perfect segue, Travis. Y'all went on to have the most wins in the season since 1999. Back then, what was this? You guys were, 14-2. You lost in the conference championship game. But that was when Tom Coughlin was still the coach, Mark Brunell, and all those guys. So my question, Travis, starting with you this time. What was the confidence level like, right? When you guys secure that 13-4 record, AFC South championship, but I know you're looking beyond just division titles, but how confident were you guys feeling after you guys put up such a historic season last season?
if you're talking about after the season, or are you talking about before the playoff loss? I want to make sure I'm answering the question right.
That's a fair follow up. Let's go before that
All right.
sandwich in between regular season's ending and postseason. What was the confidence level?
All right. So the confidence level was the Jaguars have a punter's chance to beat anybody. And I think that that's a reasonable landing point, seeing how they dominated the Denver Broncos right after the Jets. Two, teams that pretty much line up and just are going to try to play a lot of man coverage against you. And they're just saying, man to man, we can fight with any of you guys. We can beat anybody with the top defense. And that makes me automatically look at, the New England Patriots, even another team that they would have been projected to play against, and think, oh man, if they can beat these guys like that, the Broncos like this, then they can probably beat the New England Patriots, and kind of doing the same thing. All right, then that means that you have a real legitimate route to the Super Bowl if you can get lucky enough. But then they also lose their starting left tackle, Cole Van Lannon, the last game of the season, the second half of the last game of the season, going for stats, going for getting those final bonuses and everything else. And they end up losing him for the dang playoffs. And that's like, oh, that's not what you want. And unfortunately, so you're looking at the overall look of the team and thinking, oh yeah, this team has a chance to do something if they get hot, similar to the old New York Giants when they beat the Patriots. It's not to say that there was a Tom Brady team in this playoffs, but it's to say that the Jaguars were obviously not the favorites. It was just one of those chances if they got hot at the right moment and they got the right lineup of the right opponents, then they could make a long postseason run. It didn't materialize. It didn't work out because of the ills that we knew they had. And everything that happened in that playoff game against the Bills was exactly things that we had complained about, literally had full segments on the podcast throughout the season. We talked about the fact that they were the second in the league in time to throw against. So which means them and the Cleveland Browns were the two teams just lined up, took a 3-step drop, got the ball out quickly, and kept on moving down the field. It happened all throughout the season, including the Cincinnati Bengals game early on. Davis Mills, you already know about that. You witnessed that one. And it was multiple backup level kind of quarterbacks who just had success because the defense wasn't able, they didn't have the personnel to make it hard on guys. They weren't able to line up in press coverage and disrupt the receivers that way. They changed that this offseason, but that's at the time that was a major issue. We knew it was an issue, and it was an issue in that playoff game. So I think folks were like on cloud nine overall with the thought process of what this team could be, because it was easy to see at that point, while still knowing that there are very many limitations on this roster that still needed to be corrected, but they only had the one offseason, and now they've had two. So I think that's a reasonable place of where they were. I don't think it necessarily changed much after the first round exit, because the exit was it was seen. I don't think it was like a known that everybody thought it was going to happen, but it was kind of one of those things. Saying I have a puncher's chance of winning is not saying that I believe it's automatically going to happen, if that makes sense. I think folks were generally positive on the team, even in the post game. You saw the one with Miss Lynn. What was her last name? Miss Lynn. Which you the one, baby. You the one. Like all that comment is still after that loss.
A lot of flack. She got a lot of heat.
She got some flack from some folks who are take themselves too serious, and that's okay. That's gonna happen.
Boy, I'm talking about. Man, listen. I saw, and Kyle, I'm about to go with you after this. No, man, I saw that. Look, it warmed my heart because you don't see it in our industry a lot. Somebody just taking the time that, they could be asking you a question. They could ask you an analytics question and coach, all this stuff. She took the time, like a grandmotherly presence. She put her hand on his shoulder and said, baby, baby, you did a good job. That kind of thing. It takes you back to those years, man. And look, I enjoyed it. Like you said, I just think a lot of people took it too serious. I think it was just an encouraging moment. I bet you that it meant a lot to Liam Coen, to be picked up in that moment after such a historic season, for it to end like that. I mean, look, it is something to be celebrated. No, it's not a Super Bowl, but I mean, we got to get out of this whole thing of like, if it's not a Super Bowl, then it's trash. Like, I get that. Trav, I get it.
With the additional context of Liam Coen losing his mom and then having that happen after one of the biggest losses in his career as a head coach, that speaks volumes to me, and I don't care what other people have to say about it, like from that perspective.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, after this, I want to see if I can add her in this segment right here, just to shout her out and say, hey, thinking about you, keep doing what you're doing. right? Ignore the haters. But Kyle, man, so how about you, man? So Trav kind of landed his plane on this point, which was, you guys were kind of here, but there were some, foreseen issues that cost you your playoff game. So I'll ask you, I mean, has anything changed with your perception after that playoff game? Did it change when that happened?
Well, and quickly, I want to ask if you guys are aware, did Miss Lynn set a world record for like the biggest audience to invite a dude to the barbecue? Because that I think that should be acknowledged that was a pretty big audience to invite a dude to the barbecue. That's all I'm throwing out there. But with that in mind, the confidence level was super high, and I think the way it was framed, certainly on the dive, that if Josh Allen plays like Josh Allen, the Bills will lose the game. That did not happen. If you want to know what hero ball looks like, please see the next week when Josh Allen got eliminated for playing hero ball, right? And Travis touched on the other shortcomings too. It was also the biggest, and probably it may not have been the first time, but it was certainly the biggest time I criticized Liam Coen on a detail. Still love Coach Coen. Still think he has the potential to be. This front office has the potential to be the best Jacksonville Jaguar front office we've seen for the franchise. We've seen that first step for the rest to make that possible. I know it's too soon to make that call, obviously, but him not taking the points was something I criticized harshly at the moment and still think it was a big factor. And the other reason I think so is there was one team that took the points every time in that situation, Clayton. Interestingly enough, it was the Seattle Seahawks that won the damn Super Bowl. So, all that to say, yeah, the confidence level was super high going into that game. And it would have been even higher if it was any other team on the AFC list that they had lined up against, right? So,
real quick, there you go. I need people to understand. He dropped a nugget. We're about to move on, but he dropped a nugget. I need you all to pull out your notebooks. The Seattle Seahawks, they were one of the most, I believe by the stats, one of the most conservative teams in football. I think they were one of the bottom 3 teams in like fourth down attempts, I think. Because they understood that in a time where everybody goes for it to their own detriment, to follow the analytics. And I'm not an anti-analytics guy. I'm an anti-not common sense having guy. In a world where everybody's trying to play Madden football and Madden coaching, take the points. Let me make sure my microphone is on when I say this. Yes, I know that 7 is more than 3, but 3 is more than 0. And the minute that a lot of coaches and fans understand that, you win a lot more games. I get it. I feel like ever since the Eagles kind of pioneered this whole overly aggressive thing, everybody has taken that and said, oh, we can beat Tom Brady too. No, you can't. No, you can't. Like, it's beautiful when it works. What's his name, man? Brad Staley. When it doesn't, I forget his first name, but former Chargers coach who got fired for that kind of thing. So, there's the gift and curse to that. But anyway, we're not on that right now. Anyway, but to y'all's point, it was a historic season. Didn't end the way that you wanted it, but you're here now, and it kind of leads me to my next question, Trav. Starting with you, year 2, Liam Coen. What is your confidence level? I hate to reuse the same language, but I mean, do you feel as though you guys are ascending? Right? Are you more so positive in that reality, or are you hesitant based off of maybe some of the inconsistencies that Lawrence and the Jaguars have shown you in years past? Are your expectations high going into year 2 on the Coen?
So I'm going to tell you my normal thought process with every NFL offense running in year 2 of an offense is always that they're going to take a step back. It's always, I'm very consistent with this. This is not because this has nothing to do with Liam Coen, nothing to do with Trevor Lawrence. This is something that I'm an accountant. I have an accounting degree. I'm a football jock who also just happens to be smart. But I look at numbers, and there's so much data that goes back to this. I can prove it to you, but if you go to my socials, going back like 4 years ago, we had this conversation in great depth that lasted like 2 weeks on different threads that were talking about basically how at the second year of an NFL offense, so not necessarily quote unquote sophomore slump, just if you're under the same offensive coordinator the second year in a row, the numbers normally are going to look the best in year 1. And then year 2, defensive coordinators are going to have an entire offseason to kind of figure out what the teams do against you in the playoffs, or if you didn't go to the playoffs, what the teams that had success do against you. And then they're going to spam you with that the entire next season. And it's going to come down to which offensive coordinators are the best at countering what guys counter you with. How are you going to change that offense? So that's why I'm always generally going to lean on, this is probably going to be a little bit rough coming up the next season in that offense. until you see what teams are going to hit you with and how you're going to kind of counterpunch that. But I will say this is one of the first front offices that I've seen in Jacksonville that actually have a modern NFL play caller who actually seems to be very open to changing their offense on the fly. And I don't mean like on the fly, like, hey, we wait to the bye week. I mean on the fly, like, dude, that looks significantly different than it looked last week. And he's already leaned into, Liam Coen has already leaned into the fact that they're going to be adding that 13 personnel, 3 tight end, maybe a little bit more 12 personnel, 2 tight end sets into this repertoire of things that he has, adding the screen game back in. They took the screen game out of the playbook basically at the bye week last year. For those who maybe not paying attention, they didn't run very many screens during that 10 game stretch at the end of the season. And the same thing with the run game, trying to reestablish that, going from more of a zone blocking team to more of a gap blocking team. So they want to have all those things in their playbook to kind of counter. If you are a great penetrating defensive front like the Texans are, maybe I want to run. Maybe I can run more zone against you and trying to kind of slow you down a little bit up front. Or vice versa. If you're the opposite kind of team, maybe I can just run at you and just dominate you up front. I want to have that ability up front. And because of Liam Coen being that flexible, being that good of a coach on paper and on the results on the field, both in Tampa Bay and in Jacksonville, I'd have more confidence than I would most offensive coordinators in year 2. But I want to be honest and say, generally speaking, I hate going into year 2 of an offense because I think it's going to probably end up not going well. But in this situation, I think it's actually going to be real well. I actually call CJ Stroud's regression also in year 2 of Bobby Slovic. I called it a full 9 months ahead of time, just so you know. Kyle's my witness because of that same theory of year 2 being rough.
Sure. No, that's true. And let's parse it out real quick. And Kyle, I'm going to lob it over to you in a second. Look, to go to the Bobby Slowick point, right? Let me put my glasses back on for this. So for the Bobby Slowick point, right? I'm a guy who I'm on wax as having said that I believe that Bobby Slowick, I think he lost a job because he didn't play well with others, meaning he just wasn't the most collaborative of guys. Yeah, I mean, they had basically an elite first year. We always, we talk about it ad nauseum. CJ Stroud, offensive rookie of the year. Nico Collins had a career season. All these things happen, all the good things. But then the very next season, there was a stretch. If no other stretch encapsulated it, I think it was this. They went a stretch where the Texans offense where they did not score a single second half touchdown for about a month straight. And the only time that this was broken was against the Dallas Cowboys, and the defense had to do it first, right? So it's one of those things where, you went from, an elite first year of offense to the next year where these defensive coordinators and these defenders who are paid to make you look foolish, they did that exact thing. They adapted to you. They picked up what you're putting down, and then they basically started that regression. And yes, I look at CJ Stroud, and I think there's a whole narrative about, I think, him needing, him getting humbled in the midst. I think he thought he arrived, and after 1 year, as opposed to understanding, like, brother, you got to adapt to the adaptations. This is not.
He was talking like a wild boy on them podcasts, and I was like, "Ooh, that's not going to end well, brother. You can't be out here talking." CJ Stroud was saying some things in the media, and I was like, "All right."
This man, he called himself a top 5 quarterback, on the $1 Million with the Game podcast, and I was like, "Ooh, this man took a world tour, all that with Micah Parsons of all people." Anyway, but back to the Bobby Slowick part of things. He just didn't adapt his offense. He wasn't collaborative. Heck, there was even that story, if you caught it, where before CJ was even drafted, allegedly he got in CJ's face and said, "I don't give a F about college and all this stuff. This is the NFL, blah, blah, blah." And it was so bad to where CJ thought he was not going to be a Texan. It went that bad. So fast forward, you're talking about Liam Coen and the hope you have for him. I mean, yeah, absolutely, because you have a guy who, again, he's open to modernizing his scheme. I forgot which week this was, but there was a clip of Liam saying, "Hey, that was my bad. There was some kind of play call he did. That's my bad." Like, thank you. When your coach is able to stand in front of these grown men, his 53-man roster, and say, "Hey, I called some hogwash. I called some dookie. That's my fault." Like, that makes you say, you know what? Hey, we can follow this guy. We can trust that he'll make adjustments because he's the first one to hold himself accountable. Bobby didn't do that. And I think we have a guy like that in Caley who would do it. But again, it's not what we're talking about. So I can see why you're confident, because you have a guy who's willing to adapt and has shown you that he's willing to adapt going into year 2. But Kyle, what you got?
And listen, just to quickly mention too, I think an element with Bobby isn't just with him, as though you make great points there too. CJ Stroud was done no favors as that offensive line was quite just torn apart. And then once I saw that Laramie Tunsil was let go, I knew there were going to be problems. I didn't call it as confidently as Travis did. He was like weeks before me. And granted, we didn't necessarily see it falling as far as it did. But year two offense is a thing. But here's where I'm going to go a little different from Travis. Like a step back. Yeah, maybe a step back in the record. But I'm going to say this. I'm more confident in the Jaguars winning a round one playoff game than I have been since covering this team. Okay. And the repeat of having a back-to-back playoff appearance, you mentioned that 99 season, bud. I'm more confident in that happening here than I have in anything else I've seen, whether I'm covering the entire NFL or the Jags. I've been the student of the game for quite a long time. I'm not going to say how long because I don't need to date myself. But in that time, this is the most confident I would be in the Jags making back-to-back playoff seasons. So say what you will about the record. I think that will make it a better season this year.
That's the last time it happened was 1998, 1999. The Jaguars making playoff seasons in back-to-back years.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, I got it. Like I said, I'm taking all that in, taking all these notes right there. I understand. And Trav, real quick, too, what you were saying in your breakdown. Oh, hold on. Kyle, you had something?
Oh, yeah. And nobody said the Texans wouldn't make the playoffs, too. This isn't that kind of trash I'm talking. I'm just saying this is the first time I've felt this confident ever about the Jags making back-to-back playoffs.
No, as you should. I mean, you went 13-4, and that had some funny business that happened. You would have swept it. Like you have too many reasons to not, just you have too many things going in your favor to not be excited, right? So I respect it. I do. I really have. I don't have a retort against that. I don't try to be a total hater all the time anyway. However, I will sprinkle a little bit of that Dave Chappelle hate here real quick. So y'all did lose a couple of people, and maybe just maybe they're not like cornerstone players, but they were effective for you last year. You know what I'm gonna ask. You lost Travis Etienne. I'm sorry, I was gonna call him ETN. Travis Etienne and Devin Lloyd, right? You did lose those two pieces. So, Trav, I'll start with you, man. I mean, will those pieces kind of get in the way of y'all's plans? I mean, will they be significant losses in 2026?
If you were to ask the staff, they seem not to believe it will, but I can't tell you that I have that same level of belief. And I'm okay saying that this team has clearly shown us throughout this last 2 off seasons that they have no problem trusting in rookies. We may have a different level of comfort. We may have a different level of confidence and a different level of conservativeness. They don't. They live in a different world. They are absolutely in that Rams breed, that Rams mold of we're going to open the runway and we're going to allow our coaches to do their job that we pay them to do because we believe in them to also be good at their job and to allow guys who you may not have heard of or you may not have confidence in to step into that role and fill it. All right, cool. Well, then I'm going to have to trust in you to make this work out. And that doesn't mean that they're going to be 100% on their selections and that on their evaluations. But similar to the wide receiver room last season when they brought in De'Ami Brown in the offseason and then ended up later having to trade for Jacoby Myers because it didn't work out. Maybe that's going to route that they will have to, duck, dodge, and dip and everything else to make it work. But they found a way to do that last season. I think the same thing this season. They got off of the Devin Lloyd contract situation because, they got out of the contract negotiations when you're talking about $15 million a year. They got out of the Travis Etienne conversation because he was talking some real big money for a running back that we thought was kind of incomplete when you're talking about being being more of a gap scheme than a zone team. Again, if this is the Miami Dolphins, Travis Etienne would fit perfectly, but the Jaguars, who was trying to go to being more of a powerful downhill running football team, Travis Etienne may not work as well as a Chris Rodriguez or maybe a Bayshaw Tootin. So that makes some sense. Overall, I'm not going to say that I'm all on board with moving on from an all-pro and a Pro Bowl level kind of talent as Devin Lloyd and Travis Etienne are, but I see the philosophy of where they're going with. Hopefully it works, but those are moderately major losses, but there's no guarantee that they just didn't believe that these guys were the end result of what they wanted. These were the guys they had, so they used them to the best of their ability, and they moved off of them because of it.
Mm, okay. Yeah, ever since you said that you were an accountant, that's all I can hear, just like, giving these accountant analytical breakdowns. But Kyle, what about you, man? Devin Lloyd, Travis Etienne?
Are we just going to gloss over my personal champion here, quoting Patches O'Houlihan from the Dodgeball movie? Like, that didn't happen, right? That wasn't just me. I'm throwing it out there, right? But and no, listen, what it is that they're trying to dodge, dip, duck, dive, and dodge with those talents leaving has nothing to do with their production on the field, though, right? What it is overcoming the sins of Trent Baalke in the in the pocketbook, right? Who's talking like an accountant now, by the way? No, but I don't think it was ever about talent for them. And let's be clear, Travis is using words like Pro Bowl and very positive things. I appreciate my personal champion overcoming his typical cynicism with "this team makes me drink" t-shirt, right? But Devin Lloyd came out of nowhere. Can we stop forgetting that was a thing? And there's no guarantee he'll do it again, whether he's in Carolina or Jacksonville. So I'm going to come out hard defending that. If dude wanted to be extended that bad, he'd have shown up sooner. That's all I'm throwing out there. Maybe it was the other coaching staffs. Sure, I get that. Ryan Nielsen was a thing, and he was awful. And I'm not discrediting that champion. We talked about that a lot on the dive. With Etienne, though, see, I don't go full Etienne. With Etienne, I think that's a tougher convo. But because Liam Coen is who he is, he knows what he wants to fit. And what he observed was a slight bump in the O-line. Not even a great success, just a slight bump. They went from one of the worst in the league to mid-level and got the production they got. And it seems to me like Liam Coen feels like that he should have gotten more. And when you also consider how many injuries there were in the receiver core and how certain things were going a certain way, listen, to Travis's point, we don't see as much film as they do because they get paid whatever many dollars to make that their life. And we would love that to be our life. We're just not there yet. But all the above,
right, we watch a lot of film, but we don't watch as much as them. That's okay.
You watch a lot of film. I watch some film. But all of the above to say, I think these are calculated risks to accomplish two things. A, to find better fits for the long-term plan, and B, to help dodge the sins of Trent Baalke. I said it when Littlefinger, a.k.a. Trent Baalke, was first fired. The healing can begin in Jacksonville, and this is what that looks like, unfortunately.
Y'all are funny. Littlefinger, that's funny. I say it's hilarious because that reminds me of, again, as another aside, that reminds me of our Jack Easterby saga in Houston, and how he wasn't was he Littlefinger? He was called a lot of stuff. Littlefinger. Was it Rasputin? He got a lot. No, Stalin? Was it Stalin? He got a lot of those where he was like this guy who just kind of worked his way through the organization and had no business being there. No disrespect, but that whole thing happened, and it's like things turned around as soon as that notification hit. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Rasputin. No, but as soon as like Easterby was like fired or future endeavored, as they say, things kind of got better. And it's funny because I remember on our end, you talking about your guy and Trent Baalke. First of all, it's coming back now. Never have I seen it done where a coach interviews for a position, he leaves, and then all of a sudden your owner fires the GM and then says, okay, let's try it again. How about now? I have never seen that done before. It had to be something to Trav, you got something?
I'm just thinking. I was trying to think about an example. You got me in my head now. Has that ever happened before?
For me, in my sports watch, because I'm only, I'm 33. I ain't seen that much, but in my sports watching time, how bad it's your job you got to be to where I interview a guy and your name comes up. Because normally what happens is, if your heels are dug in on a guy, personnel guy, executive coach, you're not firing him. If a coach says, "No, I'm good," then that's usually kind of what happens. This was like a public thing. This was like, and didn't Liam Coen also like he had a sneaking interview? It was like layers. It was layers to it, and then it's like for that to happen, and then like you fire Trent Baalke, which probably you said it should have been happened, and then you get your head coach. It mirrors the Texans so much in that you fire Jack Easterby, especially after Andre Johnson basically nuked your organization and said you're an organization that's known for wasting careers. Like, then that happened, and you finally fired him, and now things turn around. It's just funny to see the mirroring happening between these two organizations. So, which
Right.
is hilarious to
The
me.
Texans were just ahead of the curve, and Jaguars were resistant to that change, and trying to hold on to Trent Baalke, which was frankly a holdover from Dave Caldwell. So all of this is just an ongoing small half measure that continued to happen with Shad Khan, the owner of the Jaguars, before he finally just clean slated this bad boy. And it took everything. It took heaven and earth to be moved for that to take place. And shout out to Tony Baselli, who is the Andre Johnson of basically the Jaguars side of things, making that take place. Because again, they fired Doug Peterson and didn't want to fire Trent Baalke, which then gave them issues with trying to hire a new scouting staff and everything else after everything was said and done with the hiring of Liam Coen, because they were behind the 8 ball. I mean, they got these guys in house right the week before the combine. So even from looking at the draft and the free agency and everything else from their first season, he had an out. James Gladstone, the GM, had an out or had an excuse, I should say, if it didn't work out fully, because, hey, man, I don't have my process. I don't got my guys. So many moving pieces because of all that originating from the sin of half measures with the owner. And now they finally started what we can say the sin, what did Kyle say? The healing can begin now that they moved on from that guy, but also that healing took a full season because of how late it all took place, because you didn't really want to do it. So the fact that they now have done it, it is sort of like a clean slate rebuild where we can start seeing, all right, this is how you're going to do things. All right, well, I'm going to trust you because this is scary. I ain't going to lie to you. This is scary because we moved on from a top guy who objectively we can have many of these guys to complain, to brag about Pro Bowls and all pros and all this stuff. But we're trusting that you say, I'm going to clean the books. We got to get out of this salary cap situation. Okay, that means that there may be some pain, but also we trust in this coaching staff. So we'll figure it out. So the book's written from my perspective on Liam Coen. From my perspective, I think we all know he's going to be a good coach. I think we all know he's going to be a good play caller. The book is similarly written on the defensive coordinator, Anthony Campanelli. I think we all kind of have that same confidence in him, and Heath Farwell, the special teams coordinator, who's top of the league. The question that's still lingering is, who is James Gladstone? Because of what he had to overcome with the books and everything else, and because we don't know what's going to happen with the draft class just yet, because we haven't seen much of them on the field.
Right.
We will see. Are they going to be able to fill in for the talent that they're losing and bring in more Pro Bowls and all pro talent? That's the only real lingering question. But for the most part, they having confidence in the quarterback and having confidence in their coaches is a great starting point.
No, I agree. And if look, speaking of the draft for a second, then Kyle, I wanted to kind of wrap up with you. I'm going to start with you, and then we're going to go work our way to draft. Looking at y'all's draft class, I mean, look, from what I understood from a distance, and you know, everybody has one or two of these reach picks, right? Where people are like, "What are you doing?" And you know, he had this trade grade, and every Monday morning quarterback would tell you he was not on my big board, and you know, all this stuff. But I know with Gladstone, I know that he caused him a little bit of flack because a lot of his moves were looked at as reaches. So, and again, we're not in these rooms. I don't know. That's just kind of what I picked up on. I say that to say he looked like an extreme genius, or people can say, well, this is what happens when you reach on so many picks. So we'll see. Hindsight normally is 2020. And what gets me is a lot of people love to you know, they speak as though they called it off rip. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You did not. No, nobody knows. Nobody knows. There's so many players throughout NFL history who are Hall of Famers, who were 6th rounders, 7th rounders, who were undrafted, right? Who got guys you didn't see coming. And you know, don't say that you see everything. You don't. It's a crapshoot. We're in a time where you have Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, who is arguably a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, right? Making good money, revolutionizing draft pick usage. Like we're in a time where the GOAT is Tom Brady, a 6th rounder who got his opportunity because Drew Bledsoe. So Kyle, I'm gonna start our wrap up with you here. So everything being considered, how do you see the division race ending in 2026? I know this is kind of an anti-Travis question because he likes to be more in the middle and not want to do a lot of stuff. But How do you see it going, man? Do you feel like you guys continue your ascension? Do you clinch the AFC South title back-to-back years, or what?
And listen, any team that has a great defense at any particular time has a chance to have a surprising outcome. I'm going to give the Texans all the credit. I think that the Texans and the Jaguars will decide the South. It's going to be a two-team race. Sorry, Colts fans. It's just how I feel. Indiana Jones is not going to finish a full season, or if he does so, he won't do it with the prowess that you need to win or compete for an AFC South title. Let me get that out of the way. Please notice how I'm just skipping over the Titans for time. But all the above to say, I'm like I said before, I alluded to it. I think the Jaguars have a worse record, but I still think they have a shot to repeat as South champions, right? I think there's a world where 11 wins this division, which is a good thing to say for the AFC South, because I've had years where I've successfully predicted a 9-win team winning that humpy bumpy, right? That's a thing. It's not this year, though, because first place schedules matter. And to the Texans' credit, they won't have a first place schedule, but they will have a defense that will make a lot of other teams hurt really bad. I mean, I'm going to say the obvious thing here, man. CJ Stroud and his ability to mentally bounce back, which I think he has, is good. It's ironic we talked about CJ going on podcasts. I think it's the coaching staff's ability to pivot that solves for the Texans and their potential success. Do I think today, line them up, that I would predict a game where the Texans and Jags are going to be facing each other? No. I'm going to go right with whoever has home field, straight up, because I believe these two teams battling right now with what we know, not having seen training camp or anything else, that's where they're at right now. I think this is a tight race. If you were to put a gun to my head right now, I would say that the Jags win it simply because I'm more confident in Trevor Lawrence.
I see the race going pretty much where Kyle is. Like, it's going to be a dogfight. I have more confidence in the Indianapolis Colts than Kyle does, but I also had more confidence in the Indianapolis Colts going into last season than Kyle did. I was one of the few people that said early on, this team's going to be good. I think y'all drunk. I saw how they were going to do it, having basically two running backs from my perspective, and the guy who can throw the ball deep. I'm like, yeah, this is going to work out real well for them. And before their injuries, it was working out real well for the Colts. So I think this division is actually going to be much of a dogfight. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if you told me straight up that the Colts ended up being the AFC South champions or second in the division, and the Texans were third, or the Jaguars were third. Like, I'm not trying to be a teal glass wearing, teal Kool-Aid drinking homer on this one. Like, I want to be honest and say, if you were to flip either of these three teams from first to third, it would not surprise me, depending on how injuries go and everything else, because they showed you flashes. Each of these three teams has showed you flashes in the 2025 season of what they could be at their best. So overall, I'm looking at this like I have the confidence on what teams are able to change what we've seen, to be able to improve what we've seen. Like, that's what this is going to come down to. I've seen that from Liam Coen. I can objectively say that I've seen that. I have questions on what that's going to be for the Houston Texans offense, with Nick Caley coming from that Rams background and leaning a lot on CJ Stroud. There are a lot of questions that's lingering in that young man's lap. And I don't know where that's going to go, especially with that and the run game with your offensive line. Seems like you may have had the pieces. I got questions. I think that's a reasonable landing point also. But overall, because of that and that elite defense you guys have, you're going to have a little bit of an edge. So I'm landing with this being similar to Kyle's point, a 10 to 11 win AFC South champion that's going to come down to the last 2 to 3 weeks of the season is probably where it's going to go. I'm going to give that edge to Liam Coen and the Jaguars because of them having the right defensive coordinator, but also the right offensive coordinator. And Cam Little and Heath Farwell and those special teams guys matter. But if you told me that the Houston Texans and the Colts are truly rock stock 'em roboting it out for that second place spot, that's probably where I'm landing at. But yeah, so I think the Jaguars are right there. And also, in reference to this draft class, I think it's actually going to be very similar to the Jaguars 2023 draft class. That's just kind of where I'm at. With that Anton Harrison, Britton Strange, Ventrell Miller, Antonio Johnson class, where folks thought they were overdrafted when they came in, but now you're looking back and saying, oh no, these guys were good. So that's kind of where I'm landing at on this bad boy. If you told me the Texans won, I'm like, I'd hate to see it, but also it wouldn't be so surprising.
So, but no. So to land and playing with you guys. So again, I'm not gonna. I try not to be disrespectful, but yeah, the Titans, they are where they are. They're probably gonna win what, 6 games, maybe something like that. They could shock. I don't know. Cam Ward could make an ascension. I have no idea, but I'm just gonna say it's hard to go from 4 and 13 to a 12 win or 10 win team. So I was gonna keep them at 4. And see, it's funny because I don't know if you guys know Mike Patton, who is host of the
Well, yeah, we know Mike.
Yeah. So touring the AFC South, he was on the show, a week or so ago, and he said something funny. He was like, we agreed that if any team that we'd pick to finish third, it would be the Indianapolis Colts, because they just have so many questions, right? And that's what I said. They have so many questions. Jonathan Taylor, he wants a deal. Alec Pierce, he's coming off an injury. Daniel Jones, after looking elite for like 4 to 5 weeks, fractured his fibula, ruptured Achilles. So, and then on top of that, is Daniel Jones has he really turned the corner? Is he that guy for Shane Steichen, or is he going to turn into a pumpkin? We don't know. And then after that, what else? You got Josh Downs, because you traded Michael Pittman. So there's just a lot of things happening in Indianapolis. And if there's any team that I think is primed for that, big meteoric regression, it will be the Colts. And I'll stand on that. Now, as far as, first and second, I agree with you guys that it's gonna be a dogfight, man. I don't see the Texans or the Jaguars, barring something unforeseen. I don't see any of those two just running away with this division. I just don't see it. There's too much going on, especially in the head-to-head. So I don't know, which is what makes it exciting. But if you just had to ask me, I think narratively, because the Texans have, even that, I was going to say the Texans have so much more to prove, but no, because both, you could argue, have a lot to prove. Are the Jaguars as elite as they look? Is Liam Coen the guy? And if you're the Texans, CJ Stroud, what are you going to do? This is a make or break year for all intents and purposes. Can you make that first Super Bowl? So there's just a lot going on for both franchises. But if you had to ask me who I think is best suited to win this year, I just think it would be a schedule thing. I think the Texans' schedule has lightened up enough to where they can rip off enough wins on the front end. Now, mind you, the back end of the Texans' schedule, it is awful. It's like from weeks 12 to 18. You got Colts, you got Ravens, you got Packers in there, you got the Eagles in there. You just got this murderer's row of just like playoff teams, right? And I say the Ravens too because they were a Tyler Loop missed field goal away from being a playoff team, so you might as well put them in there. You got the Steelers on there too, who want their revenge most likely. So that back half of the Texans, I'll say this: if they're going to clinch the AFC South, they're going to have to master that back half. That's where we're going to probably see a winning of the division and a losing of the division for the Texans. If you're the Jaguars, honestly, it comes down to just beat who's in front of you. I think just build off what you have. I think low key, you guys have maybe one of the better receiving cores in the NFL. I know in the AFC South, Mike Patton said this also. He said the Jaguars have the best receiving core in the division. And at first, I was like, Bird. But then he talked about it. You got Parker Washington. You have now if you want to throw oh my goodness, Travis Hunter in there as like a sneaky gadget guy, sure. But you got Parker, you got Travis. You have Strange now extended. You have BTJ, who they're trying to make work. So 1 through like 3 or 4, it's like, yeah, I can see why they're number 1 because you know what you're getting from these guys. And Jacoby Myers too. How dare I forget that? So 1 through 4 or 1 through 5, you for the most part know what you're going to get from these guys, and it's probably one of those things where the whole is greater than the sum of their parts, or however that expression goes. Whereas with the Texans, you got Nico Collins, right? 2-time Pro Bowler. Awesome if he can stay healthy. After him, you have Tank Dell, who, again, I'm happy that he's trying to come back. But, this man is basically playing with one leg. This man has lost 2 whole years of his career and really probably shouldn't be playing anymore. But he's trying to give it one more go, I believe. So he'll be back. But you got guys like Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel and, others, Xavier Hutchinson, who had a career year last year. So, but cobbling all that together, we'll see. For me, it's going to come down to, like you said, CJ Stroud, is he the guy, right? And I don't want to be unfair, but that's literally what it comes down to. You got David Montgomery. You got Woody Marks slid down to RB2. You got tight ends brought in. You got the defense. You brought in Caden McDonald. You know, you brought in at least 5 new offensive linemen, multiple all pros, like, you know, you have basically the most complete offensive infrastructure that CJ has seen since 2023. What are you going to do with it? So, you know, with that being said, again, I don't want to hedge my bets too much, but it's hard to pick. I would say the Texans using the schedule, but if I look at the team with the least amount of questions to answer outside of like the Devin Lloyds and the Travis Etienne's, I'm looking at the Jaguars. So, but it's going to be interesting. I didn't know if you guys had any, you know, final thoughts. We're basically, you know, wrapping up here, but
I got you. Do me a favor.
yes.
For one of your future podcasts, take a look at the Jacksonville Jaguars schedule and compare that against the Texans schedule. And I think you may end up landing on a different end point or a different projection, I should say, because the exact reasons that you believe the Texans could end up starting off hot is the exact reasons I think the Jacksonville Jaguars can end up starting off a season like not even necessarily hot, just about 500. But the Jaguars have a murderous road to open the schedule this season, exactly how they had a murderous road to open the schedule last season. And they end up going about 4-3 in those first 7 games. And it prepped them for the easy half of the schedule where they just went on a run of just destroying teams, you know, like whatever it was, like the last 10 games, it was like 8 wins or something along those lines. And I'm thinking the exact opposite of what's going to happen is the folks are going to be filling the Texans early. And then the Jaguars are going to go on this run. And it's going to be like, ooh, that's going to be rough. But yeah, overall, I also think you guys didn't give. I think you might have done a disservice to the Colts 2025 schedule, from my perspective, anyways, because Daniel Jones was healthy up through that week 10 bye week, and they were 8-2 with only losses against the Rams and the Steelers by 7 points. So I think that's actually a different conversation also than maybe we were talking about. But at the end of the day, I know we got to get out of here. But that's the gist of where I'm at. I'm thinking it's going to be a much of a dog fight. We'll see.
I got you, man. Listen, again, like I said, I don't try to be disrespectful. I mean, listen, I just call it like I see it. I try to. And look, I'll give credit to the Colts. And Kyle, we're going to wrap up with you first. Look, I'll give credit to the Colts. They had a historic offense that first 5 to 7 weeks. I mean, it was scary what they were doing. Daniel Jones looked like, oh, wow, Brian Daboll couldn't get that out of Daniel Jones. He looked electric. Jonathan Taylor, of course, was doing Jonathan Taylor things. And then the wheels fell off, right? And so that was the lasting thing we saw. So look, that's our division. It's exciting because, again, it's competitive, right? You got at least 3 teams who can make a bid for it. And look, if all teams were firing on all cylinders, it could low key be. I don't want to be disrespectful here, but I think we could possibly challenge for being like one of the better divisions, all things considered, if every team was on all cylinders, right? So anyway, but Kyle, kind of going with you in this wrap up. So what projects are you guys working on next? Where can we kind of look for you guys next up?
First of all, Clayton, fantastic work by you here. Not just because I'm sitting in here, but like a lot of your analysis is really good. The only thing I'll add is you made the point about starting off Murderer's Row and then trailing off in the back end. The Colts had the inverse last year, and that's about when they started to struggle. Interesting, nobody else but Travis D. Holmes has pointed that out at any great clip. Give him credit to my co-host, as I should do. But listen, in honor, joy, and privilege, and maybe you said that before, I just heard it from him the most, man. I'm taking nothing from you. But in the meantime, of course, thanks for having me on. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at the SOTG. Check out my work, of course, with my personal champion on the Duval Dive. My work covering UCF, the University of Central Florida, doing stuff with Locked On UCF and UCF Night Zone, where I'm the senior writer, I should say. And then, of course, my coverage of the UFL with the Storm Surge podcast, like I flipped my hat for earlier, and you had the perfect sunglasses for. And, of course, my writings for the Orlando Magic, for where I cover the Magic for Orlando Magic Central on 1010XL.com. So, yeah, I'm doing the things, man. But thanks so much for having us on. I had a great time, bud.
Absolutely. No, absolutely, man. And Trav, anything you're working on next?
I mean, you are bigcatcountry.com. I'm always going to tell folks to support local journalism. And we have this thing that on the Duval Dive where we let the folks know when articles are coming out. But also, more importantly, if you have trouble reading, I do understand. We live in a country where we don't shame people. All I'm going to say is click the link. just click the link. And at the end of the day, support local journalism, support all the guys with feet on the ground and boots on the ground that's making this thing happen, that's giving you guys the content that you so passionately look for. So when they put something out, you got to support them. So bigcatcountry.com for any of my written Jacksonville Jaguars coverage and any of our breakdowns of any of the pressers and the OTAs and such coming out, but also the Duval Dive podcast with student of the game, Kyle Nash, where we put it together for the fans and just keep talking about all the content and all the things that they want to kind of discuss in this off-season time. We're putting out about 3 to 5 episodes per week. Busy time for the off season. So yeah, we're definitely putting it together. But Travis D. Holmes on all the socials. Hit me up if you want to talk about anything Jacksonville Jaguars related, or if you want to just bash on the Houston Texans. So I'm here for that too, because you know how we get that.
Listen, all right. Listen, I already got a bet with the Bills going on here, so don't make me. We'll do it again. No, man, definitely. Look, if you guys are up for it, I would love to have you guys back on again throughout the season or just at different points. Just to chop it up, talk ball, see what's going on, check in. What was I going to say? Oh, yes. I guess my last little wrap up. I mean, y'all know where I'm at, man. Clay_HTX Sports. I do this at least once or twice a week with different guests. No, it's been a blessing. It's an honor to do this, collaborating with men like you, learning so much. I mean, I'm sponging, right? Like full disclosure, I've only been into the world of sports media for about a year now. So, being able to do this with you guys has been awesome. And it's funny enough, you're being with SB Nation, I believe. That's where I got my start, with those guys there, with Patrick and all those guys at Battle Red Blog. And that's before, Toro Times reached out. So now I'm doing stuff with Toro Times. So that's where you can find my written pieces at daily, torotimes.com. Check it out. I post things. I talk about sports, talk about the Texans, periodically sprinkle in some Astros and Rocket stuff, so there you go. But outside of that, I'm Clayton. That's Travis. That's Kyle over there. This has been our 2-on-1 handicap match, and we'll see you guys later. Take care. Go Texans. Go AFC South.